So next up in the section on solutions to the development gap, we're going from that really, really big picture stuff, the Sustainable Development Goals, which is a partnership between over 190 countries across the world with all those 17 goals. And they're really looking at massive big changes that need to happen across our entire planet to improve the life chances of those who have those life chances compromised just simply because of where they happen to be born or live. We're going from something as big as that to something really, really small scale into something called sustainable development, and in particular here, appropriate technology. So we're going to define what that is in a moment, but we're really looking at those really small scale things that can be used by people in poor, isolated, resource-poor areas across the world that can make a difference to them. And we're going to start off with a rather obscure little connection. So I'm suggesting down here, if you're a guy, how would you go about impressing the girl of your dreams? If you're a girl, I wonder what a guy could do to impress you. Whatever you're thinking, it's probably not the best thing to do to follow the advice of the Wurzels and the song that they wrote in 1976. Let's take a little bit of a listen.
Drove my tractor through your haystack last night. Went through my pitchfork at your dog to keep quiet. Now someone's telling me that you avoiding me. Come on now, darling, you got something I need. I got 20 acres and you got 43. Well, I got a brand new combine harvester and I'll give you the key. Leave me alone.
Okay, you gotta admit, as far as love songs go, that is somewhat bizarre. There's the lyrics there in case you struggle to make it out. I've got a brand new combined harvester. I'll give you the key. Oh no, that's terrible. That is terrible. I am awful at accents. I've got 20 acres, you've got 43. The best I can do is a wee County Antrim accent. What about that? I've got a brand new combined harvester, hey. I'll give you the key, hey. Now, if you're a certain technology teacher in the school, that may well be the way to your heart. But for many of us, that's not exactly what we're going to be looking for coming up this Valentine's Day. If you have got your eye on that someone special, if your eyes are meeting across a socially distanced classroom and you're living in hope of a little sign of their undying affection towards you, you're probably not looking for a combined harvester. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, here comes the tenuous link. Oh dear, this is really cheesy. You ready for this? Right. If you want to achieve sustainable development in underdeveloped rural areas and LEDCs, then sending out a massive combined harvester like that one would not be appropriate either. Why not? Why not? So, what are the problems of using one of these in remote rural areas in sub-Saharan Africa, say? Why don't you have a pause of the video and see what you can come up with? So some of the things that you might have said would be, right, well, getting access to diesel for it, or the cost of maintenance and servicing and access to repairs. You might also talk about the skill level needed to operate something like this and the other machinery that needs to go with it and so forth. So although this would be appropriate in the fields of Northern Ireland, and you'll see them out harvesting away, this may not be so appropriate whenever you go into other contexts in the world. Right, so let's then define what we do mean by appropriate technology. Here is our definition here, and it's technology that's suitable. It's appropriate, it's suitable to the needs of the locals, the skills of the locals, the knowledge resources they have, and the wealth of the local people in the environment in which they live. Now look at all those elements of appropriateness. It's saying, right, rather than just sending whatever you're going to send anyway, you need to think about the context of the people and the environment that you're sending this into. So the main benefits that we see of using locally appropriate technology, it uses locally available resources. So rather than you having to go somewhere else to get the resources, they are locally available, and the skills of the local people. It's going to be relatively low tech. I can't speak today. Low tech. So it's easier and cheaper to run and to maintain. This phrase, labour intensive, right? Now, one of the issues and challenges with machinery like this is that the machinery like this can do the job of lots and lots of people. Now, that might increase the efficiency of farming in the likes of the UK, but whenever you're using this in places where there's greater poverty, you want something that is going to provide jobs for locals as well. But also it is more efficient than simply doing things by hand. So it is going to improve the quality of life, because we are in how we're going to reduce the development gap. This is all about improving the quality of life for people. Okay, that's our theoretical definition. We've looked at a bizarre Wurzel song. What does this actually look like? Well, we're going to go to the Darfur region in South Sudan, in our good friend Sub-Saharan Africa. And what we see in this particular case was some refugees. It's a refugee camp of people who had fled persecution. So if you're thinking of the likes of the migration in Eritrea, these are refugees, these are asylum seekers, these are people that have fled persecution, and they're living in tents with whatever they can bring with them. They have next to no money and resources, and they were absolutely desperate. So this aid agency here, ITGG, were desperate to come up with a solution. Here's what they say in this article. The people in Darfur thought they had tried everything. The soil that they were working in was heavy. The climate in Sub-Saharan Africa, in the Sahel region here, was unforgiving. They were too poor to afford camels for ploughing, so they worked the land the hard way, by hand. And they could only watch as their crops failed and their children suffered. So you're clearly in a situation here where the context is that these are desperately poor people, the refugees. The environment is harsh and unforgiving, and they are struggling. So how did we solve this? How did this group work here to help with them? They helped to develop some appropriate technology using a locally available resources to help them in their solution. And here's how. This is donkey plough. So what did they do with this? Well, first of all, the plough. They worked with local farmers and they built a plough out of scrap metal. And the blade was perfectly suited to the local environment. So there it is. The blade turns furrows that can hold the precious water that falls for weeks. Now, next up, donkey. A donkey. Although most families own a donkey, they laughed when ITDG first suggested using it, but they had seen it work, and they proved it can work in Darfur. So the donkey pulling the plough, crop yields can raise by up to 500%. Yay for the donkey. So you got a donkey, a plough. What are you going to join them up with? Well, this is a soft harness stuffed with just straw, cotton and rags. Again, things that were locally available and the family could easily make for themselves. Combine those together and you have a way of improving the quality of life. So can you see how it uses the locally available resources and skills? So locally available resources, most of the families had a donkey. There were bits of scrap metal about, and this bits and pieces here of the local skills, they can make it for themselves. It's low tech, it's easier and cheaper to run and maintain. It's labour intensive, so you're getting lots of opportunities for the people, but it is more efficient than simply doing things by hand. You can see here the efficiency is improved by 500%. This is an excellent example of appropriate technology in operation. So you look at the definition again. It's suited to the needs of the locals, the skills of the locals, the resources and the knowledge they have, and the wealth or poverty here, and the environment in which they're working. This is appropriate technology. Okay, so what you need to do now is to stop the video and then jump into this part of your notes where you're going to be working on these questions based on the resources available above. Then once you're finished in that, we're going to go on to my favourite case study that we do in GCSE Geography.